Hey Pokey, my name's Kaelyn Gondola,
Hi, I'm Madeline Atkins.
and today we're here with Miss Delonas to cover the mascot questions.
So I just want to say thank you, number one, for taking time out of your day to talk to Kaelyn and I about the mascot issue. I know it's been a topic of a lot of people's discussions lately, and I know you've written some stuff and put them in the Idaho State Journal, and we're talking about how research plays a big role in your decision to change the mascot. So first thing I wanted to ask is, why do you think the research is so important?
Well, let me talk about research just in general. So why research is important in general in education. So, of course the goal of all educators is to provide kids with a really great education, right? To make sure that they learn as much as they can and have a really positive experience at the same time. And so if there's practices that we're doing in our classrooms that are, one, ineffective because they're not accomplishing the goal of learning, or two, they're harming kids, then we shouldn't do them. And that just is common sense, right? So have you guys ever, sometime between kindergarten and now, engaged in something like popcorn reading?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so popcorn reading is a common practice that teachers do, but often don't know the research that talks about popcorn reading. And the research with popcorn reading really says that it's not effective in teaching kids how to become better readers. It doesn't increase their reading fluency, and it definitely doesn't increase their comprehension. In fact, it actually harms comprehension for lots of kids because it's so disjointed and different intonations and different speeds, and it's just hard to follow. And so it's really ineffective as far as an instructional practice. And then for lots of kids, it's embarrassing because they can't read aloud well. And then they've got, the super readers, and it just points out the differences in kids. And so for a lot of kids, it really causes a lot of anxiety, and it's embarrassing and causes shame. And so so if a teacher knows that, then it would make sense that they would say, I'm not doing this. It's not effective as far as helping their education, and it's counterproductive to what we're trying to do as far as creating a great environment and making kids feel safe. So just in general, research in education is something that, should guide what we do, so that we're not relying on just teaching the way we were taught.
Alrighty.
Why did you start researching the mascot issue?
So the mascot issue I started looking into when I first became principal because, I've loved this school. It's been part of my family's history. My kids went here, I went here, and I wanted to make sure that we were doing everything we could to be as respectful as we could and represent, the Indians as positively and proactively as possible. So I went out, I made an appointment, and I went out and met with the tribal council, and I asked them if there was anything that Pocatello High School needed to do differently, or if we needed to be aware of anything, or if they would like us to know anything or whatever. And about half the members of the tribal council said, you need to change your name. It's not okay that you're the Indians. We're not okay with this. We've asked for this. And the other half argued with them, okay, and said, that's not what she's here for. We're not discussing that today. And so I knew then that this was going to be a topic, that at some point during my time as a principal, this was going to be something that I was going to have to deal with. And I wanted to be able to defend the mascot. I wanted to be able to say, this is why we're keeping it, and we're not getting rid of it. And the last thing I wanted was to be the person who lost or gave up the Indians, because I love it deeply. I've always taken great pride in being the Indians, and so that's the last thing I wanted. So I started researching, and of course I went into it with a bias, because I'm going into it with, this is a good thing, so I'm going to read the research, and I would read something and it would point to, this is really harmful. And I would say, well, yeah, but we're special. We do things differently. And I would set it aside for a while. And then maybe a month or two would pass and something else would come across my desk or in my inbox, and I would read some more. And I would be like, well, yeah, but I know Native Americans that don't have an issue with this. And so I just kept this whole list of yeah buts that I kept rationalizing why the research really didn't apply to us, or why we were more special than everybody else who has Native American mascots or something. And so I just, there's this constant tug of war of the intellectual side of you that is getting a deeper understanding of why this is a really important issue to address, and the emotional side of you that wants to justify and defend what you've done for so long. And so, about 2 years ago, Mrs. Pankow, who's one of our teachers here, had been getting trained on equity in education, and she was going around and teaching this in other schools and districts and around the state, and I asked her to bring what she had learned to us. And so over the course of that year, we had her speak to the faculty and do some training several times. And one of the things that she talked about that finally sort of settled in on me and made me start thinking about this differently was this idea of your intent versus your impact. And that while your intent is really important because it sets the context and the stage for why you did something to begin with, it doesn't overshadow or isn't more important than your impact. Your impact is really more important. And so, you know, the example I gave in the earlier video of, you know, you hugging a friend, you knocking their drink and spilling something, or, you know, even like a little kid, you know, when you have like 2 3-year-olds and one of them knocks the other one down, you say, oh, tell them you're sorry. You know, you don't say, well, you didn't intend to, so you don't need to do anything about that. You know, it's just human nature to want to repair negative impact. And that's when it really started to hit me that the research is saying that this is negative, and so I needed to look at the impact here at our school. And so I started talking more to our Native American students. I started talking more to our Native American parents. And, you know, there was a group of Native American students that actually came and told me that they were very uncomfortable and wanted permission to not attend any assemblies because they were ashamed, they were embarrassed. It was, you know, a problem for them. And it just, I mean, you know, your entire goal as a school, one, is to educate kids so that they can go out in the world and do great things, and two, to make sure that they have a great experience and that they feel welcome and loved and accepted, and you know, in our school motto, you know, where everybody is somebody. And I just kept thinking, we're doing things that are harming a portion of our student body, and we need to do something about this. And about that same time, the tribe asked the state legislature to, or I think the legislature, somebody at the state, to just make a statewide decision and say, hey, you know, this is problematic. Would you just make a ban on all Native American mascots in the state of Idaho? Many states have done this. They've just said, this is a problem. We know it's a problem, especially in education. So you can't have it, and schools in those states have had to change. But our state decided that they didn't want to take that on. And I'm sure for them it was a political issue, you know, it's a hot topic. So they said, no, we're not going to act on that. And so it was left up to individual districts. And, you know, that was 2019, early. And then, of course, you know, we have COVID hit, and nothing really happens. And then in August of this year, we get a letter from the tribe specifically asking for us to change the name of the school and the mascot. To, you know, this needs to, that we need to talk about this. And they stated the reasons why that they didn't like it. And so, you know, we met as a school district and said, you know, what are we going to do about that? And we said that we need to go out and talk with them. But at that point, you know, I decided within myself that I needed to be more proactive. I needed to stand up for the kids in our school. I needed to say, this is a problem at Pocatello High School, and I can't just rest on the yeah buts. You know, I have the knowledge of the research, but really what changed me and made me want to act on this was that idea of our intent versus impact, and seeing the impact on our own kids, and seeing the impact in the halls, and the impact of kids not wanting to attend assemblies and not wanting to be part of this, and feeling like they were, you know, their needs and, you know, their feelings were largely ignored because of all these, you know, excuses, these yeah buts, it's tradition, it's this and that and the other thing. So, so I decided, you know, it was my job to stand up and say, you know, they've asked over and over and over. It's brought up every so often since like the 50s or 60s, and I didn't feel like they needed to ask again. I felt like it needed to come from me. It needed to come from the school. That, you know, on a very personal level, that we could see the negative impact. And if we're negatively impacting some kids, just like that popcorn reading, Maybe there are kids in that class that love popcorn reading, that this is their time to shine. They love it, it's fun. But the kids in the class that are embarrassed and feel bad about their skills and their abilities, and they feel like they're embarrassed and ashamed, they shouldn't have to have that. And so, it shouldn't be that one outweighs the other, and, this group needs to get over it. So that's why I said, I'm gonna ask for this change instead of making the tribe come and ask. Had I not, the tribe would have come and asked. But I just felt that it was important that it came from here, that we owned up to our impact and said, it's time for us to change.
Okay. So what if you tell us a little bit more about the mascot committee and how the selection process is going so far?
You betcha. So the mascot committee has been working, they've worked a lot, really hard. We've gotten about 185 to 190 submissions, and lots of those are duplicates. And they went through every single submission and read, and we started grouping them. So, animals together, people together, things, ideas. And then we, had some conversations about if we choose a person as a mascot, like a patriot or a pioneer or an explorer, then could that become problematic down the road? Could that become offensive to some other group? And we decided that we were going to rest on that people shouldn't be mascots, and we were just going to eliminate people as an option. And then started just going through animals and what would make sense for our area, what would make sense for tying to our history, what would make sense for kind of keeping a cohesive story going forward. So they've narrowed it down to, there are technically 9 choices on the ballot, but 3 of them are really the same because they're all tied to bison. We had many, many, many entries for bison, and they came in the form of just bison with a bison image, thunder with a bison image, or the stampede with a bison image. And so we wanted people to know that those 3 were together. So we had the group that did bison, they did it as in the same video, but we also wanted them to have a input into, do you like just the name bison, or do you prefer another name but with a bison imagery? So that's why we have it on there for 3 different choices. So, and then we'll see what the community thinks and what all the students think, and we'll say these are the top 3 that sort of rose to the top. The committee will outline the pros and cons of each for the school board, and ultimately the school board will choose. It's not a vote like the highest number of people that like that wins necessarily. It could be, but the school board is the one that'll make that final decision. But it's really exciting. It's exciting to be part of something that will change how Pocatello High School interacts with its mascot and logo, because we'll be able to dress up and have silly characters and people in costumes and wear things that we haven't been able to wear. And so I think it will be fun, and it's also history, because we're standing up and saying, we've got the information, the knowledge that this is harmful. We see it firsthand. We see our impact firsthand, and we're going to do something different to change our impact. So,
alrighty, thank you for coming to speak with us today, and thank you to everyone who's tuning in.
Thanks, guys.